All right, I want to bring in Richard Johnson, who is a lecturer in U.S. politics at the Queen Mary University of London, and he joins us live from Oxford, England. Good to see you again. So, obviously this is just sort of that cover kind of symbolic, but it does reflect how much influence Musk has on the government right now.
Yes, it's a rather curious beast, this Doge entity, because if you look at the executive order that set it up, it's actually a rebranding of an agency that was rather obscure, not known much to the public, the US Digital Services Agency, which actually Barack Obama had set up to help manage the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, to help with the setting up of healthcare.gov. And this agency has continued to exist. Joe Biden used it during the pandemic to help with the vaccine rollout. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of been rebranded as Doge. And now Elon Musk is thought to have sort of the president's permission to go through and start shutting down agencies that have statutory basis. I mean, these are agencies that in some cases Congress has set up and has appropriated funds to, which violates all kinds of Article 1 principles, Article 1 being the powers of Congress, including the power of the purse, where it's Congress's responsibility to set federal spending, and it's the president's responsibility, the executive branch's responsibility, to implement those instructions set by Congress. The executive branch doesn't get to second guess what the budget is.
Yeah, that's why we're going to see so many lawsuits as well. You said that this entity was rebranded into Doge. Democrats would say weaponized. They kind of seem Democrats unsure how to handle Donald Trump this time around. They seem to be focusing a lot of attention on Elon Musk, sort of casting him as this supervillain puppet master, but also concretely trying to highlight how much power he wields with little accountability or transparency.
I mean, I think there obviously is a great deal that concerns that one can raise about Musk and his particular role in government. Although I would caution about an over focus on Musk and over personalization on it. There has been a range of policy changes that President Trump has brought in. This is part of a strategy which his outrider Steve Bannon once called flooding the zone, this idea that we're just going to throw lots of different policies at the wall and see what sticks. And that has two implications. One is the policy implications, that you have new policies that may come into effect. But the second is that it really changes the political weather. Almost 100 years ago, a political scientist called E. Schattschneider, writing about tariff policy, actually said, new policy creates new politics. And that's very much, I think, what President Trump is trying to do with his executive orders. By implementing these sorry, if you want to come in.
Just on that note, exactly on the politics of it. But, even if you put politics aside, I mean, there are serious concerns about how much access this Doge team has to finance, payroll, and so on. And many states are suing to stop that team from accessing Treasury Department data. And this is going to be, as I kind of talked about earlier, I mean, this is going to be a recurring theme when it comes to the actual cuts that Musk and Doge are pursuing, eradicating departments and getting rid of employees. They're now running up against the courts, and some of those efforts have been stopped in their tracks. Is this just a preview of how the next 4 years will go, or will Trump sort of run out of executive action steam and start getting Congress to put the force of legislation behind some of these initiatives?
Well, personnel management, I suppose, has been one of those ways that presidents have always been able to put their stamp on things in a dramatic fashion. I mean, you go back to the very early years of the Republic, that one of the most famous early Supreme Court cases, Marbury versus Madison, was a question about the appointments that John Adams was making in the final days of his presidency. This whole notion of the spoils system, to the victors the spoils, comes from Andrew Jackson one of President Trump's presidential heroes, who, when he came into the White House, he sacked about 10% of the federal workforce, including hundreds and hundreds of post officers, because they weren't Democrats. So there is a long tradition of that. But the difference today is the federal government does so much more than it used to in the 19th century, that its policy scope is so much broader. And so this isn't just a question of, who's running a particular post office in a particular county in Kentucky. This has implications for people's lives. People are depending, both in the United States and around the world, on these federal programs. And actually, I think there is a lot of damage that the president can do to these agencies. The courts will be able to step in, but I think it's not going to be that the court can just come in and just hold the president, revert back to the way things were. That Trump is a master at what we sometimes say, shifting the Overton window, shifting the range of possibilities. And people learn, when I say people, both the public and policymakers learn from when you try making policy change here. If it doesn't quite work, they make adjustments and then they try something different. That's what he did in his first term. And he's learned from his first term. And I think this is why you're seeing even more energy in his second term with these executive actions.
Yeah, absolutely right. We'll have to leave it there, but always appreciate all the context you bring to these issues. Richard Johnson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well,